Hey, it's Llama here. Welcome to Preparing for Ark Survival Ascended. In this series I started out fresh on the island on official PVE. This is Ark Survival Evolved, but I'm limited to only items and creatures available in the base game on the island to give a realistic perspective on what starting out on Ark Survival Ascended might be like. Today we're going to look at our taming plan. Now, given that only the island will release with Ark Survival Ascended, we can only use island creatures. No Maywings, no Shadowmanes, no Wyverns, no Striders. Most taming opportunities will appear in front of you when you're least expecting it or aren't prepared for them. So one way of making sure that you are ready is to plan your tames and prepare the materials and foods ready for taming. Maybe consider placing some traps in common areas where these dinos normally spawn, and if your trap has a door, leave it unlocked so other players don't have to build their own trap, cluttering up the area and reducing creature spawns. So let's look at our lineup and what we still need to tame. So we already have an Argentavis for general travel and Dino weight carrying. These guys get a 75% weight reduction on a lot of materials, so they're great as a harvesting companion. I've bred two and imprinted the baby, so we get an imprint buff because this one's going to get ridden a lot. The Ankylosaurus, the first in our harvesting crew. These guys are the #1 flint gatherers and #2 for metal, only behind the Magmasaur, which won't launch with Ark Ascended initially. And they're also great for harvesting crystal and obsidian. They get an 85% weight reduction on metal, and you can carry them with your RG, which makes them hands down the best metal gatherer that will be available on the island at the launch of Ark Ascended. Next, the Dodeceus, the stone harvesting monster. This guy is #1 gatherer for stone and has a 75% weight reduction on it. A must-have for base building. Like the Anky, they can be carried with the RG and they can still harvest stone while you're carrying them. And they also do this really cool sort of roll movement travel thing while you're riding them. It's a lot of fun. Now the Therizinosaurus. Not really the #1 gatherer for anything, but incredibly versatile. They're great for gathering wood, although they have no weight reduction, which makes gathering large quantities of wood painful. They're also great for fibre gathering, and they're fast and pack a punch if you get attacked. These guys are also your best bet for the dragon boss fight, so we'll need a good stat breeding pair to raise an army. We already have ourselves a bear for honey gathering. This will become important when we need sweet veggie cakes for the dragon fight or for taming ovis. Not essential, as you can tame a bee and get yourself a beehive and get honey that way, but who doesn't love a bear? The Megatherium is the #1 gatherer for chitin, and normally I would use one of these to run the swamp cave and get some easy levels, but they cannot enter the cave without cryopods, so we won't be doing that this time around. They are good for gathering berries, and they're pretty decent for gathering thatch as well. Speaking of caves, we'll need dinos to do the caves. The baryonyx will get you into most caves without the use of cryopods, and this will be our main caving tame for this playthrough. We'll need a pair to breed, as we'll want a strong imprinted one to do those caves. And Thylers for any caves where we can fit them. These are my all-time go-to tame for any map they spawn on. Flyers are good for getting around quickly, but the Thyler is so much more fun. They run fast, they jump, they climb walls, they do bleed damage. You can shoot off them while you're riding them, which makes them brilliant for running caves and taming Rexes. Once I have a Thyler, I use them almost exclusively. I need an imprinted Thyler in my life, so we'll need to look for a male and a female with decent levels so we can breed them. And while we're still on the subject of caves and artifacts, we cannot forget the Otter. So otters moderate your temperature, and they'll keep you warm or cool. Plus, they are the only creature which will carry artifacts, and they will in fact carry multiple artifacts, which saves you running caves over and over again. These are an easy tame and a must. Now, Rexes will be the key to our boss fight strategy. We will need to tame a lot of Rexes to get decent melee and health stats to combine in an army. We'll use Rexes for the Broodmother, the Megapithecus and the Overseer, also as a meat and hide gatherer until we're lucky enough to get ourselves a Giga. This brings me to the apex predator, the Giga. A much sought after tame, but quite rare to find, and even rarer with decent levels. Remember, we're talking about the island here. Now these guys currently share a spawn with the Ankylosaurus. I really hope they change this in Ascended and give both their own spawn container and slightly different locations. And if not, then at least fix the ratio of spawns, because currently far more Karks spawn than Gigas. Some would say Karks are easier tames than Gigas. They're certainly faster and can prove to be a match on full bloodlust buff, but I think Gigas are the easier tame. With the right trap and kibble or mutton, plenty of narcotics and a couple of decent crossbows, a Giga is hard to find but easy to tame. Not essential, but good for meat gathering, hide gathering and general crowd control. Now to craft enough narcotics to keep a Giga down, we'll need an awesome berry gatherer, so I'll be on the lookout for a decent level Brontosaurus to replace our Parasaur. These are the #1 gatherer for berries and also for thatch to help you with your base building. Now you don't need to tame Ovis, particularly if you have extraordinary kibble, but for taming Thylers, who can be tamed on cooked mutton early game, you don't have long to get your food, and finding Ovis on this map is tricky. So my advice is kill everyone you see, cook up the meat and store it in the fridge, or tame a couple and start breeding them for backup. Raw mutton is also good for taming Gigas or Rexes if you want to save on kibble. The difference in tame stats is very minimal, but it spoils fast, so you're better off keeping your mutton in its natural state of sheep, so it's there when you need it. Next, the Brine Ognatha. Once we have some half-decent Rexes or maybe Brontos, we can look into getting ourselves one of these. Even if it's a low level or you can't satisfy the cravings and you don't get the best tame, these will still be the fastest way to get around. You can carry large dinos, transport structures, just bang everything into stamina. Even the low levels come with good weight, and their melee percentage may be low, but they hit hard enough to get you out of a pinch. This one is a game changer. I'll also be taming a Basilosaurus. These are the go-to underwater tame. They're tanky, they do good damage, and they're immune to squid grab attacks, jellyfish stings, and eel shocks. These are essential for running the underwater caves on the island. They're also good for collecting biotoxin for shocking trank darts. We'll need a good pair of these to breed an imprinted one, as those underwater caves aren't easy. And finally, the last piece of the boss fighting crew, and arguably the most important, the Utahranders. Now this guy gives a courage buff to our boss fighting crew. This buff increases the damage they do by 25% and reduces the damage they take by 20%. This can be the difference between winning and losing the fight. One of these is what I'll be riding into the boss fights, and I'll need a decent stat imprinted one. For the early fights, I just need high stam for the courage roar, but when we get to the dragon and the overseer, I'm going to need some melee and health as well. These guys are also the main source of eggs for extraordinary kibble, the highest tier. The only other eggs that can produce this kibble on the island are golden Hesperornis eggs, and while they're not too hard to get, collecting decent quantities of these eggs is very time consuming, while UT females will produce them passively. Now this isn't an exhaustive list. There are a few other things I might tame as we go through, but this is my wish list which I'll work through. I'll use the Dododex to confirm how much of each taming food I need on hand and how many narcotics or arrow or darts and materials I need for traps, etc. As I said, most tames are opportunistic, so I keep arrows, darts, narcs and a basic Rex pitfall trap in my Argy's inventory when I'm scouting around. You never know what you're going to come across. And that's it, my taming plan for this playthrough, and assuming nothing changes, the plan I will also use when Ark Survival Ascended drops. On official PvE, the competition for good tames will be tough early on, and unfortunately player toxicity seems to be at an all-time high when this happens. It'll take time, but patience will get you the tames you need. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and got something out of it. If you did, maybe drop me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next video. I'm Llama, and I'm out of here.